What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to the latest edition of the Paul Heyman SmackDown podcast, where we go back to the year 2002, check out all the things that were going on in SmackDown at the time that Paul Heyman was the head writer. And joining me, Callum Wiggins, as always, is Robert DeFelice.
Callum, we are at the final stop before we hit the Nassau Coliseum in Long Island. This is going to be a doozy of an episode.
Yeah, I'm obviously very excited and looking forward to reviewing SummerSlam, but we've got to get through this show first. A decent go-home show, but we'll obviously run through the episode itself in great detail, as we always do. But first of all, just get a few plugs out of the way first. If you want to leave a like or a comment below, if you're watching us on YouTube, just let us know what you thought about this episode or what you think about our reviews, our thoughts about this. If you aren't listening through YouTube and listening on one of the podcast feeds instead, make sure you leave a rating, then hop over onto YouTube if you do want to get involved in the conversation, leave a comment below. There's obviously a playlist. If you haven't been listening from the start, you can go back right to the very beginning, check out the playlist on smarkoutmoment.com's YouTube channel. And there's obviously the link in the description for this episode of SmackDown if you haven't checked it out in advance. If you want to check it out after you hear it's a good show, want to check it out, hear it's a bad show, still want to check it out. But so that's all the stuff that we need to get out of the way here. So let's move on to talk about the news and events about this tour time, because there's a few things that's worth pointing out. The main story that I saw revolves around Tiger Ali Singh, a name that you probably wouldn't expect us to be talking about even in 2002.
Yeah, that's hitting me out of left field.
So he was released from his contract only in July of 2002, surprisingly enough. He was still working with the company up until that point.
So last time he was on TV was for Lowdown, right?
Yes, I believe so. And then he went to work in some of these smaller feeder promotions. I think he went to Puerto Rico for a while. And that was actually what this revolves around, is the fact that he suffered a career-ending injury after being forced to wrestle in the rain while in Puerto Rico. And for this reason, he sued World Wrestling Entertainment for a lawsuit worth $7 million.
You know, he just strikes me as a guy who was missed potential, or maybe didn't have what they thought they did initially, because he spent a good 4 years with the company and didn't do much.
Well, he could have, if he'd have been around in 2017, 2018, he would have been world champion.
Well, yeah, he would have been about 5 years away from a world championship, but he would have gotten there.
So he basically accused them of him being responsible for this career-ending injury, and apparently he's suffered people calling him taxi driver behind the scenes, because I assume that he's Indian. I assume there's a stereotype of
there is, especially
taxi drivers in New York.
I think at least in the early 2000s there was. I'm not sure if that still exists today.
He also complained that he was the victim of a stunt in 1999 where his turban was stuffed with garbage before he went out to a show.
I 100% believe that. I know nothing, obviously wasn't there, but I can totally see that happening.
Yeah, I can totally see that happening, and I can assume that Bradshaw was involved.
Yeah.
This lawsuit didn't hold any water. They didn't actually end up paying him anything. It just...
That sucks.
But I thought it was just an interesting thing to bring up about this huge $7 million lawsuit based around very innocuous stuff. And, well, the career-ending injury is not innocuous, but it happened in Puerto Rico, and I don't know how he can really equate that to WWE, other than the fact that he was under contract with WWE, but he wasn't working for the promotion specifically at that point.
I think if he would have stuck to the, hey, they called me a taxi driver and they stuffed my turban full of garbage, I can see that carrying more weight than trying to get them for an injury you suffered in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, I don't know how much you'd get for that, though. Maybe like, okay, here's $5. I had to get out of the courtroom for that.
He might, I don't know about this for sure, but he might have been the guy who basically instituted the rule of, hey, we're not going to have people do jobs when we've let them go, and we're just going to have them sit home, because if they get hurt, they'll sue us.
I'm pretty sure there was, I can't say for certain there were a lot of guys for him, but he was definitely in that category, it seems. Let's talk about NWA TNA a little bit. So they're already heading into budget troubles only a few months into their incarnation. Unsurprisingly, if you know the extended history of TNA.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a never-ending story.
Their budget issues were so bad they had to take a break from taping new shows between the 21st of August and the 18th of September. So they had to tape shows in advance, and then had 1 week where I think 1 week at least, where they didn't have any show altogether. And at this point, they're only doing 1 week, 2-hour-long pay-per-views. Apparently, wrestlers' fees had dropped from $500 a pop to $300 as well. So they were having early struggles as trying to be WWE's new competition.
It's interesting. We tend to do these retrospective podcasts at the right time, as now NWA is partnering up with the United Wrestling Network to once again launch a weekly pay-per-view series. Only this time it'll be on Tuesdays, and this time it'll be broadcast over the internet on Fight. But these things just keep going around in a circle.
Yeah, it is interesting to know. I wonder if that will be more successful or less successful than. Well, I guess TNA still exists, so
TNA still exists. TNA was relatively successful, and I don't know if we live in a climate where that can be matched today.
So, in terms of what's happening in WWE, back to WWE side of things, there's the backstage sentiment going out, as we've discussed in previous editions, that guys wanted to be over on SmackDown because of the belief that you get to get over because it's there, put together a show with more opponents to work with. So the Raw show was still drawing more crowds. They were just getting larger paychecks because of the fact that it was based partly on the attendances that you would get for house shows, and Raw was still outdoing SmackDown on that front. But people we're just always getting this general sense that SmackDown has the better atmosphere surrounding it at this point in time.
Yeah, it's that desire to be used when you're a guy like a Benoit or a Guerrero. They knew they had more to offer.
And we have 2 notable releases that took place around about this time frame. One of them is X-Pac. So he was officially released.
What number of firing is that?
It says a firing. That's probably, well, I assume it's his third if you count the I assume it'd be his third if you count the WCW one. Did he get fired in WWE and then got rehired by WWE?
Wasn't he gone for like a good chunk of time before he came back with the NWO? He wasn't fired? He was injured?
No, he wasn't fired. He was injured at that point.
Ah, okay. So I think, yeah, that was just his second from WWE and third if you count the WCW release.
And the other notable release was Paul Bearer, who was working in a backstage capacity in WWE at the time.
I think, was that a weight-related thing where it was just like, listen, we're not using you on camera. You should go home, work on your physical condition. I think he said that in a shoot interview with Cornette.
Yeah, I believe it was something to do with those lines. Obviously, he wasn't being used on a TV capacity at any point, and The Undertaker wasn't The Undertaker anymore. And I guess they just felt this was just one of... I mean, at this point, we've already discussed the fact that WWE is losing money because the Attitude Era is over. They're not in that windfall period, so they are going to let people go that they don't need to keep around anymore.
Worry not, the world is still up in Times Square for fans to visit.
Yep, still up there because you need to have... Some things take priority over people, Rob.
That's right.
And to be fair, I assume like they wouldn't have been too happy, like the servers at the World, if they were just like, yep, it's done now. Maybe it's better that they were keeping that alive. When Paul Bearer probably could have got a job in any other wrestling promotion if he wanted to.
And I'm pretty sure he was on TNA the next week.
Yeah, he was even on TNA next week, and in 2 years he was back in WWE managing The Undertaker again.
It's a never-ending cycle with certain people.
So that's all the news stories that we have right now. So let's head on over to what Raw is up to. Before we do that, let's talk about the ratings. We're in the ratings war as always. So for the 22nd of August edition of SmackDown received a 4.18 compared to the 19th of August episode of Raw was a 4.0. So SmackDown wins for the second week in a row.
And I like that because now we're hitting the time frame where SmackDown's just banging on all cylinders.
So what was Raw doing that was turning people away, or at least making SmackDown appear a more appealing show? Well, it probably wasn't the main event, which was The Rock versus Triple H in a no disqualification match, the final singles match between The Rock and Triple H.
That's wild to me, man.
I mean, obviously people wouldn't have known it at the time, but...
I know, and I think that's part of it too. Like, I do believe that a lot of that was taken for granted. You know, that people are probably sick of Rock and Triple H. But if you would have known that that was the last time you would ever get it, I think people would have appreciated it more.
Obviously, that match has been rumoured on several WrestleManias in the time frame since this match, but it has never materialised. It seems unlikely The Rock will ever do another match again. I think if he was to do it, Triple H is probably one of the standout opponents.
I think that Triple H, they were supposed to do it. What was it? It was 32. They were going to do the 100,000 seater in Dallas, but because of other injuries, Triple H got moved, and Rock just took a hosting gig. But it was supposed to happen, and who knows? With the way the world has changed, maybe people get itchy for just like, oh, let's do one more match for fun, you know? Like one of these shows, the first Madison Square Garden show with people again or something.
So the match itself ended in a no contest when both Shawn Michaels and Brock Lesnar got involved.
Only time that those four guys were in the ring together.
Yep. So it just seems to just strike with the idea that The Rock versus Triple H's final ever match didn't even have a finish.
Yeah, it's very appropriate for their matches, though. They always had non-finishers.
So other news coming out of Raw, the 24/7 rule for the Hardcore Championship was abolished. And Tommy Dreamer won a 9-person, 6-minute time limit match to retain the belt. A time limit match is essentially the same thing they did at WrestleMania 2000, where it's the last person to get a pinfall in the 6-minute time frame.
Why 6 minutes? That's a very specific number.
Because Bischoff did the thing where he points at his watch and says, "I'm going to give you 3. No, let's make it 6 minutes." That was what he did. So essentially, he was just going on the 3-minute gimmick and just doubled it. So Tommy Dreamer ends up being the penultimate Hardcore champion because 1 week away from this, it was either 1 week away or 2 weeks away. I can't remember exactly in my notes, but very, very shortly, the Hardcore championship is abolished.
Yeah, everything got merged into the IC title, which then got merged into the world title. It's very messy, especially looking back on it, very messy.
So Trish Stratus and Stacy Keibler fought in a pretty famous mud wrestling match.
That was in the intro for Raw for a long time.
Yeah, I can't stress enough how scary that spot is of Trish diving off the stage into a pool of mud. I know it's an inflatable like swimming pool they're going into, but how much give can that have from the concrete? And she goes.
I imagine there had to be like nothing but padding.
You'd hope so, but it's just like she's going face first, and it's not the hugest fall, but it's a good 5-6 feet drop.
I mean, because like even when you hit the water, like it hurts. You know, there is a bit of a sting there.
Yeah,
it's not great.
So Trish won that match, and it ended up with Howard Finkel also getting thrown in the mud as well because he's now feuding with Trish Stratus.
I can't wait for SummerSlam.
Fozzy did a live performance on Raw.
Yeah, they did.
Probably slightly less controversial than the one they had recently.
Yeah, this one was in front of an audience, but there was actually plenty of social distancing. Think about it.
It was interrupted by Ric Flair, who was bleeding all over the place, so that would have been pretty bad in the coronavirus atmosphere as well.
You know, I saw the clip of that because they did the rundown on SmackDown, and I'm like, why is it that Flair was bleeding? Like, why is Flair always bleeding?
It's just his gimmick at that point in time. I just think that's all we felt that he was good for, is like the Ric Flair. Like, I can't wrestle like the old Ric Flair anymore, so I need to just gush all over the place because that's something that people recognise me for.
That's such a shame.
The Un-Americans defeated the Undertaker, Booker T, and Goldust in a 6-man tag. And 3-minute warning took out the Big Show after Show threatened to injure RVD prior to his SummerSlam match with Chris Benoit. So that was like a punishment towards him. They're going through now into a storyline where even though Bischoff is heel and Big Show is heel, the gimmick is that Bischoff hates the Big Show hates Bischoff, and that's going to lead towards Big Show moving over to SmackDown because he felt underappreciated on Raw.
Makes sense, and he still talks about the SmackDown run as like the thing that saved his career.
So that's all Raw out of the way. So without further ado, let's move on to the August 22nd, 2002 edition of SmackDown from the Crown Coliseum in Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Flair country.
Yep, absolutely. I don't know if Raw is the same thing as well.
It's Hardy country in this episode.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The crowd love him. You hear that pop when he came out?
Oh, oof. It's gonna do it again too.
So the show kicks off with Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman. So this is a very typical, like 2019 Paul Heyman and Brock Lesnar promo. So
Yeah.
Heyman cuts one of these promo about, says The Rock is the #1 box office attraction in WWE, the biggest star in SmackDown's history, the most sought after action star in all of Hollywood, the cover star for People's Magazine. But Heyman is just bigging up The Rock because Heyman knows, above all else, if you beat a guy who's worth absolutely jack shit, you've beaten nobody at all.
Well, but also it was like a double entendre because he makes you think he's talking about The Rock, and then he says, it's Hulk Hogan,
Yeah.
and Hulk Hogan's gone because Brock Lesnar killed him, essentially.
Yeah, so that's the whole side of it, is that Hulk Hogan's the big star. I don't think he was ever the most sought after action star in Hollywood, but we'll leave that.
Santa with
away.
muscles, you know.
Yeah,
what a movie.
Yeah, I mean that for one instance made him the most sought after action star in Hollywood, but it went a bit downhill after that point. But Brock says that he wants Rock to get a little taste of SummerSlam tonight, so Heyman guarantees, and this is a Heyman guarantee, that they will collide at some point tonight.
They were so big on that word in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Guarantee.
I mean, that's Heyman's gimmick nowadays, the fact that he guarantees stuff and they come true. And eventually the gimmick is that eventually he'll say one thing like he guarantees that Lesnar will beat Drew McIntyre, and that doesn't come true. You kind of have to build up a huge reputation of guarantees that come correct. And he was correct in his guarantee, as we will bring up later on in the show.
Oh, yeah.
Lesnar then grabs the mic and he says that he feels the same now that by the night that he beat Hogan, he plans to make Rock cry like a little bitch. So
what a term. And Brock Lesnar here is still like finding his own legs. Like they're still trying to make Brock Lesnar a single star.
Yeah, he's a talker as well as he's not just letting, as we do see nowadays, just Heyman do all the talking for him. He is cutting promos himself as well. And again, they're very like 80s heel promos, but they're still promos at the very least. So The Rock arrives on the entrance stage. So this is the final time that he'd appear on WWE TV as a world champion until 2013. So a good 11-year gap now.
Amazing.
As
we'll talk about later, The Rock's Workhorse World Tour ends with this episode, and it hurts because he was really good at this time. I'd forgotten how good he was.
I think you'll find it ends on Sunday at SummerSlam.
Yeah, but even like the match with Brock, I don't think was as strong as like these matches. These random SmackDown gems have been so much fun.
So Rock taunts Brock, saying he's a jacked up monkey ass, and the hype surrounding him means absolutely nothing yet. Says tonight will be a night like no other, and he tends to bring it to Rock himself tonight. So The Rock drops the title, starts marching to the ring. So they said if they're going to collide, they might as well do it now. But he's quickly charged from behind by both Benoit and Guerrero. Benoit applies the crossface while Eddie stomps Rock down, and Lesnar just laughs in the ring until referees and producers break up the assault. What that essentially leads to is that they go backstage, and even though Benoit and Guerrero aren't through with what their actions were, because they see Edge backstage and they assault him as well. So we're going to be setting up for a tag team match player. It's going to be Rock and Edge in the main event against Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit.
That's so SmackDown of them.
Yep, absolutely. Teddy Long's not here yet, but they might as well just go with the gimmick now. We have another tag team match first to talk about, which is the Hurricane and Shannon Moore teaming up against Jamie Noble and Tajiri.
This is fun.
So the interesting mention before the start of it is that Nidia is going to be getting a women's championship match later in the show.
Yeah, that we see a lot of play towards this Nidia's championship match.
So the match itself, again, it's just a cruiserweight tag team match. So you're going to see a lot of fast-paced action, a lot of high spots. Not a huge amount of psychology, even they did get the heat on more for a while. But
well, I would say not as good as Noble and Hurricane in Global Warning, but very fun tag match and a shock ending that I don't think they ever really follow up with. I could be wrong though.
I guess we'll find out. So Nidia at one point kisses Moore on the outside to distract him, and then she starts sliding down to her knees in front of him.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's a little bit. Essentially, this allows Tajiri to kick him in the head. Taz said that Tajiri must have saved Moore from some serious social disease.
Okay.
At one point, Cole brings up the fact that he's wondering what Noble, Nidia, and Tajiri get up to in their trailer, which I think like he might be the only person thinking about that, but you plants the idea in other people's head at the very least. Tajiri is one of the greatest wrestlers at this point in time. I just love everything that he does. Everything he does looks so crisp. Just looks like
Yeah.
it connects with everything. There's nothing. Nothing that I see him do makes it seem like he's unsafe, but nothing I have also seen him do makes it seem like he's not pulling his kicks or anything like that.
I think he's another one of those guys who I've grown a greater appreciation for, having gone back and watched all this. It's been so much fun.
So Tajiri applies the tarantula to Shannon Moore, then there's the the hurricane to Noble, chokeslam to Tajiri. Noble tries to powerbomb Moore, but Moore rolls through into a sunset flip and scores the upset pin over the Cruiserweight champion.
I was a big fan of this finish. It shocked me, as I haven't seen it in 18 years, but I like seeing Shannon Moore get the win. You know, he was an underrated guy, I think.
So obviously Shannon Moore has only been on SmackDown in terms of the main show for a couple of weeks. He's already got a win over the Cruiserweight champion, and we'll see where they go with it in the future. But it was typically good Cruiserweight action, and based on I would at least assume that Moore might get a Cruiserweight championship match down the line, but we'll have to just wait and see as the episodes come along. But as is the case with pretty much every match in this era, there's a post-match attack by the heels.
Yeah, but they're saved by Matt Hardy.
Well, they clear the ring themselves, and then Matt Hardy charges into the ring.
Callum, they were saved. Did you not hear that pop?
Yeah, they were saved by the pop. The pop was so loud the heels had to disperse the ring.
That's right.
So he celebrates with Hurricane and Moore, asks them to lift him onto their shoulders.
Amazing.
And he does the V1 pose. So yeah, it's just this is a slow burn for Matt Hardy's heel gimmick. He's not fully fledged heel yet, but they're building it up. So Stephanie McMahon confronts Benoit and Guerrero backstage, saying that essentially admonishing them because they could have cost SmackDown the World Championship match if The Rock had gotten injured. Benoit correctly points out that Stephanie last week was fine with him decimating The Rock.
I really would. I don't get squeamish a lot, but when he does the whole squeal thing, I do.
It's a little bit on point, but at least they're bringing up the fact of like calling out her for being a hypocrite. And she says that's true, but it was in the confines of a match, and she wanted to give him a boost in order to prepare for his Intercontinental Championship match. She doesn't want them attacking from behind like they did. She then asks Eddie why she's attacking Edge, but before they can answer, Edge comes and swings with a chair right into the back of Benoit.
Amazing, and Stephanie sells it really well. With
she's shocked.
Oh my god!
Yeah, she's shocked. Eddie manages to run away. Edge then requests a tag team match with The Rock taking on against Benoit Guerrero. Stephanie accepts.
A bit of a flub by Stephanie. He says, I suggest you make a tag team match. I think she was supposed to say, I suggest you go get ready, but she says something like, I suggest your match is on, or something. She kind of flubbed it, but just a weird thing I noticed.
Yeah, it wasn't the worst thing in the world. At least it means that we got this tag team match going forward, and it makes sense because both the heels are screwed over, both the baby faces tonight. And it's a repeat of the match we saw 2 weeks ago, but I think enough. There's still room for that match to produce some good work, as we will see. Also backstage, Matt Hardy talks to Hurricane Shannon Moore about the reaction that he came. It was even 10 times louder than last week because he's a hometown boy in Carolina. And essentially Helms mentions that oh yeah, we're in North Carolina, of course you're going to get a big pop. And he says, oh, is that an affront to me? I'm only getting this pop because I'm a hometown boy? No, I'm getting this pop because I'm Matt Hardy. And so he says that the reaction will be twice as loud if he goes out again. So he gets the camera guy to follow him. He talks to the gorilla, says, play my music again. He just goes down to the ring, the crowd cheering him. He poses around for a minute until he's interrupted by Chavo Guerrero's music, of all people.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it because I kind of thought he was just going to do the whole, yeah, I'm here, and then leave. I'm so great. But Chavo comes out. We get a rare Matt Hardy, Chavo Guerrero singles match.
Yeah.
And started out okay. Hardy really playing into that whole I'm the hometown hero. And then Kane shows up. Or not, he doesn't show up, but the pyro goes off and he says his path is clear and he's made his decision and it's something like I'm gonna dance with the devil's mistress or something to that effect.
Yeah.
And I thought match was over. I'm not even being funny. I thought, okay, weird, no contest. But no, Chavo rolls up Matt Hardy. 1, 2, 3, and Chavo gets the win, and Matt Hardy then talks to Mike Chioda. You can't do this to me. It's my hometown. Whenever an explosion goes off in the arena, the match is over. That's it. That's the rule.
Yeah, I don't
And
know. I don't know whether that's in WWE's rulebook or not.
it might be. And then he goes, "Nah, this is the biggest travesty since Earl Hebner screwed Bret Hart. You can't do this to me." And then he leaves, all upset. But I thought this segment was gold.
Oh yeah, it was great. It's a great transition for Hardy into him being a bit of an overzealous. Like he's going through a losing streak right now into that sort of gimmick, but it's in order to facilitate his transition to being the new heel version 1 Matt Hardy, the overzealous, self-confident Matt Hardy. Doesn't really seem to get much done until he does later on, but we'll talk about that in the months leading forward. Kane's pyro comes off, like you said, and it says his path is chosen. So it's giving the indication that he knows what brand he's going to be on. At the very least, that's the kind of thing they're trying to put across.
Clearly velocity, right? Like,
yeah, obviously that's the reason that he was doing that. Maybe that's why he interrupted this match, because it felt like a velocity match. So he had
that's
to,
right.
like you say, the match itself was nothing special. It was fine, and it's just one of these matches that's happened, and I don't know if we ever saw this really again in terms of singles match. Maybe they'd had a match on ECW or something in the late 2000s, but
that was my assumption. Like maybe when Chavo was doing the whole thing where he was partnered with Edge, that they might have had a match, but
yeah.
I can't recall this ever happening again.
So we move to backstage where Funaki is outside the women's locker room.
This was my favorite. Everything about this segment was amazing.
So Funaki's basically appealing to this with the idea that he's taking us to a place where nobody's ever been before, inside the women's locker room. And after the commercial break, he enters and he's immediately confronted by a topless Nidia, who's obviously very well concealed behind some sort of wardrobe, I think it was.
Yeah.
It's basically just covering
some kind of changing area.
Yeah, basically enough to cover everything from just her shoulders down.
And we have the debut of the SmackDown #1 announcer.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, this is a gimmick that will run and run throughout our entire time with this. SmackDown's #1 announcer Funaki. I didn't like the fact that Taz, before the commercial break, mocked his accent. It's very
very
of the time. Yeah, very of the time. So Molly Holly follows him in and says that basically he needs to leave because they could have been getting changed. And Funaki says that's where the story lies.
Yes, he's doing a 3-part series, and that is where the story lies.
I love the way he does it as well, because he just he's saying it so passionately. It's like, that's where the story lies. That's like
he was just the total 180 from the first time he interviewed me a few weeks ago, where he was like, no, he just was like, yeah, breasts, and I'm so excited about this.
So Molly asks Nidia to back her up on this, and Nidia says that she doesn't bother her because she loves the camera. Says that Funaki's only here to admire her breasts. Because
and he gladly agreed.
Molly calls her disgusting and loose. Nidia says she isn't loose, she's open. And that when she beats...
not what I expected to hear, but I was kind of relieved that they went with open.
And so when she beats Molly tonight, the title won't be the only thing she raises over her head, because when she beats Molly, she's going to take her shirt off and flash the crowd.
And this turned into quite the story during the match, because basically the commentators were just like, oh my god, she needs to win so she can flash us.
So Molly walks out in a half, Nidia steps out, and she's suddenly wearing a bra. So it's like...
Yeah, so she wasn't actually, naked, but hey, whatever. And we got the story we needed.
Yeah, and Funaki gawks at her and says, I love SmackDown.
And it's just like, this was so good. It's one of those things, obviously you can't do it now, but this played so well into the time, and it was just funny. Like, what else is Funaki doing on SmackDown? It's perfect.
So he transitioned to an interview with Rey Mysterio. It says that people see a big difference between him and Kurt Angle, but he's proven that he can hang with him. Angle approaches, accuses Mysterio of having his mask on too tight. Says
Yeah, and then a bunch of short jokes, right? Like, I'm gonna read you a bedtime story or get a booster seat or
yeah, exactly. So says that there's no way Mysterio can hang with Angle, and he's going to prove it by beating Billy Kidman tonight.
that's the first time in a long time, right?
I don't know if it's an only time. It's definitely a first time. It might happen again, but I don't know if we'll see it in our journey. But it's definitely a rare one for any stretch of the imagination. So it says he sees Rey Mysterio's mask anywhere around ringside tonight, he's going to break his ankle at SummerSlam. We move on, and we have the match itself: Kurt Angle versus Billy Kidman. I really like this match.
I loved it. I first of all was not expecting to see it, and I was just a big fan of that it happened, and Billy Kidman got to hang, and they told a wonderful story.
So one of my pet peeves emerged in this match, which is, again, it's Michael Cole related, but he always confuses head scissors and hurricane ranas. They're
I don't
very
know.
different moves.
This was probably like an early 2000s thing. I don't know if that would be a thing now. I feel like back then you could easily just be like, oh, it was a hurricane rana, even though, most purists wouldn't know. I definitely know they weren't catering to purists in 2002.
So the story of this match is that essentially they tease, first of all, that Angle might get counted out because Mysterio dives up on the stage through Pyro. Angle heads up the ramp towards him, referee begins his count, but Angle gets back into the ring at 6 and then throws Kidman with a belly-to-belly. And Angle then takes control for a while until Kidman's able to get a few high spots in. Angle sees a Mysterio fan, or he sees a fan in the crowd wearing a Mysterio mask, so he assumes that it's Mysterio. He takes it off and rubs it in the guy's face. Kidman then dives onto him with a crossbody from the top rope to the floor. Then
Pretty far jump too.
Yeah, they do a huge number of transition spots together. Kidman escapes an ankle lock with an enziguri. He climbs up for the shooting star press, but Angle leaps up and launches him off with the belly-to-belly throw.
Great spot. Broke my heart when he was no longer able to do it.
So Angle accidentally lays out the referee with an inadvertent clothesline. He goes to grab a chair. Kidman drop kicks into his face, and referee gets a long 2 count. So they almost have Kidman just beat Angle straight with that. Angle,
awesome.
Yeah, Angle nails the Angle slam. The ref's still recovering at this point. Mysterio dives in with a seated senton, which Cole mistakenly calls the West Coast Pop. But
well, no, they said it was the pop part of the West Coast Pop.
Well, I thought the pop part of the West Coast Pop would be the part where he flips over.
Well, I guess we wouldn't know it then, but he would later on end up just doing seated sentons sometimes when he could no longer do the full hurricanrana.
So Angle gives chase to Mysterio, who runs and leaps off the ramp. Angle doesn't realize he's being counted out. By the time he gets to the ring, the referee's already counted to 10. So Billy Kidman beats Kurt Angle by countout.
I loved this match. I like the tease of Mysterio. First of all, Mysterio's pyro going off without any music or anything was a shock to me. I don't know if they ever did that again. Yeah, just a big fan of everything this match did. I like that Billy Kidman got a win over Kurt Angle, and I would gladly watch them wrestle again.
So yeah, I enjoy the fact they telegraphed the count out first by teasing it, like Angle just gets back to the ring in 6, and then they do actually do the count out afterwards. It was a good overarching story they told. Post-match, Angle hits a German suplex on Kidman, rains down punches, and then Angle slams him over the top rope to the floor. Mysterio nowhere to be seen. So I guess he just wanted to use Kidman to distract Angle.
God, what happened to your friendship, man?
Yeah, no. No friends on SmackDown.
I guess not.
Rock's getting trekked over by a trainer to just check how his shoulder is doing. So that's the story. He's selling the shoulder injury right now. Brock Lesnar video package documenting his workout regime and how this is great. Yeah, this is a great segment. Again, this is it's so simple, basic storytelling. Nobody's fighting over whether they should be joining a cult family and battling in the swamp. Nobody's threatening to take somebody else's eye out.
He's taking a bath in ice to keep his focus. Like, that is what Brock Lesnar is doing, and they're just setting it up like a sporting event.
Yeah, this is just a battle between two absolute physical specimens at the peak of their powers, just going into having a great match with each other. And maybe the match wasn't as great as ended up being hyped towards, but at least the hype for this is building so making this like these are the two top guys in WWE right now. Even though Brock's only been there for a couple of months, they're building it with like this is the match. This is the match that everybody wants to see. Lesnar sounded so much better talking to camera with this thing than he does with his promos.
I think he still does. Like I know he hasn't done it in a while, but the Punk promo where he said he was gonna leave him in blood and piss, where he's just talking to the camera, perfect. Lesnar is a good subdued talker where he just says, "I'm gonna beat the shit out of you."
So Edge meets up with The Rock backstage to check up on him. Rock says they're going to kick their asses tonight. Edge says he's concerned about The Rock's ribs, but didn't seem to be a case when he volunteered him for the tag team match earlier. So it's like, oh, me and Rock are just going to fight Benoit and Edge.
No. It's like he knows The Rock is a babyface and he totally wants the match. That's what it is.
I said that Rock was selling his shoulder. It's actually Edge that's selling the shoulder injury and Rock selling the rib injury, so I got that mixed up, but that's fine. Rock says no big deal, saying there's no quitting him even if you remove an arm, a leg, or a testicle. And then he mimes throwing a testicle up in the air, catching it in his mouth and spitting it at someone.
Nice. Just good for The Rock.
Edge finishes off the stick it straight up your candy ass in the same way that a Mick Foley would do, just to jump on The Rock's catchphrases. Rock smiles and they head out. Obviously their match isn't for a little while, but they're just going to walk on the hall for a little while.
Yeah.
We have another tag team match, which is Rikishi and John Cena versus the Reverend, Devon, and Batista.
There's a lot here. And, like, thankfully, I believe this is the end of the Rikishi, Devon, all that kind of stuff. I do think that should have been Randy Orton and not John Cena. But hey, look, I'm always a fan of seeing John Cena in 2002.
So this is the first TV interaction between Cena and Batista, so that's quite notable.
Yeah, two of the biggest stars in company history.
So Devon demands that he starts the match because he's still having issues with Batista. I assume that you would have issues if your guy, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, pushed you through a door.
Yeah, I think I almost want to feel like that segment was pre-recorded way too early and it should have occurred after this match instead of like
just there in the middle of
it. Yeah, they're in the middle of nothing. Oh, I hate you. Respect me. Like, what was all that?
So Devon and Rikishi start off. Devon slaps Batista's hand to get him in the ring, and he immediately decks Rikishi with a clothesline. Now, there's something that I noticed on this that I don't know if you noticed. Did you notice the massive camera cut in this match? So there was a clear moment where a huge amount of footage got edited out of this match. And I don't know whether it happened just on the network, or whether it happened at the time, because obviously SmackDown was pre-taped, so you could do this sort of thing. But I can tell for one salient region, which is one point Cena is standing on the apron, and then immediately the camera pans away and he's laying down in the corner.
Huh. That must have been a wild spot mistake, and I'm sure it probably happened at the time.
Yeah, well, yeah, it would have happened. Yeah, I assume so, but it's just a case of like that's just so interesting to see such an obvious camera cut mistake, because I don't say like they're always the best at hiding it, but usually you don't notice it. This one was just so noticeable that I had to go back and just watch it again because, oh my god, it's so obvious that something must have happened that was so unbelievably bad that, okay, we can't even think about putting this on television. Got to cut this away.
I feel like they were way too comfortable editing SmackDown. Like the sound machine and all the wild lines they would insert. They were far too comfortable with the fact that SmackDown was taped.
And honestly, there is a good chance that it wasn't actually something that happened in the match. It could have been something that happened in the crowd. Because as we'll talk about when we do the SummerSlam review, there is something to talk about in that respect as well. But obviously, because it's live on pay-per-view, you can't really edit it out as much.
Right.
But at this point, so Devon blind tags in. Cena enters the ring with a flying crossbody. Rikishi sends Devon charging Batista. He's left sitting. Devon interrupts Rikishi when he's trying to do the stink face. Cena drop kicks Batista out of the ring. Rikishi hikes up his trunks and delivers a stink face to Devon. Batista decks Rikishi. Devon slams Cena, but then Devon gets in Batista's face, annoyed about the fact that he's stuck with the stink face from Rikishi. Grabs him by the throat, and then Batista just hits him with a spinebuster, walks out, and lets Rikishi hit the banzai drop and pin him.
Listen, first of all, referee was letting these four dudes in the ring for far too long.
Yeah, what is this, AEW?
I know. I was like, wait, did it end? Did the match end? But Batista, Devon is a brave brave man, because even if you're the veteran to Batista's rookie, I would not grab Batista, kayfabe, real life, by the throat in any situation and not expect Batista to just beat the shit out of me.
Yeah, so I think you're right now that this partnership is well and truly ended.
Is this
Batista's
the
heading
end
out.
for Batista on SmackDown, or are we
No,
still seeing?
we will see more of Batista on SmackDown. Not too much more, but we will see a bit of Batista on SmackDown. And we will see more of Batista interacting with Devon, just not in a tag team capacity.
All right, well, that's good. You got to pay that off a little bit.
So we move backstage again when Noble and Nidia are walking down some corridors. They see an old man, I assume he's like a member of the crew. And so they ask him if they want to see a sneak preview of what Nidia's going to be doing later. So Noble just stands to him, just arm around his shoulder, and Nidia just removes her shirt right in front of him.
I was like, don't take this the wrong way, rest in peace. I was like, did Captain Lou get super fat? Like, trying to figure out who this guy could be. But
just an old dude, part of the wrestling crew. He's probably someone who's been in WWE for years, and they thought, oh, let's treat him. Let's have Nidia pretend to flash him.
One of the, I was like, it's not like one of the Moondogs. Maybe it was just, an older stagehand. And Nidia appears to genuinely flash this man. I
assume she had pasties on or something.
I don't know, but it was just like, wow. And this is network television.
Yeah, you do see just like her bare back, so those Alexa Bliss fans out there would probably be super excited. See bare back, God. Why has that not got like a million hits on like Twitter or Reddit or anything like that?
I know, the bare back. That's what it's all about in life.
Based on the so we move on to the women's championship match. So Molly Holly versus Nidia. So based on the stipulation, Nidia's the clear baby face in this match, even though she's been a heel her entire run so far.
Well, Molly is clearly a prude. You can't, celebrate somebody who wants to be a virgin until marriage.
So Cole talks about the fact that Nidia and Noble will be hosting the SummerSlam party from the world. So they're the ones doing the hosting from the world, and we will be talking about that a little bit on the SummerSlam.
Yeah, they have a good time.
There's actually, in terms of wrestling matches for this period of time, this wasn't that bad.
It was pretty good. I enjoyed it.
I think that Nidia had a lot of potential. She's still green at this point in time. Molly is very, very talented, would fit right into today's roster. And yeah, but it's just a lot of just pretty decent stuff until like Nidia starts pulling Molly down by the hair and stuff like that. There's a catapult into a corner, into a schoolgirl.
I know that Taz once again did the, hey, small package, Cole. I think of you when I think of a small package.
So Molly misses a handspring elbow into the corner. So Nidia hits a DDT for a 2 count. Molly fights off both Nidia and Noble from the top rope, nails the Molly go round, pins Nidia, retains the championship.
And we almost, to ease our woes, we almost saw Nidia flash us anyway, and then Molly drop kicks Noble into Nidia and says something like, keep your clothes on, you should be ashamed of yourselves, or something like that. And is it the end of the women's title on SmackDown?
Yeah, this is the final women's championship appearance on SmackDown until whenever it was Lay Cool won it.
Wow, man, that's far too long.
Yep, so yeah, like you say, Noble says that he's going to let Nidia just remove his top anyway. She teases doing it. She teases doing it like from the top straps, even though she'd previously taken her top off to that old man and pulled it up from the bottom. So it's quite obviously. I mean, it's obvious. Like as soon as she said she was going to do it, Molly was going to win this match because there's no way she was going to flash the crowd.
This is still pre-HLA, so yeah.
Even that they always tease this stuff and they never actually go super far with it.
I can't believe an episode of Raw is going to end with the words, give it up for the lesbians. 2002 is a beautiful but strange time.
Stephanie McMahon comes out, thanks to fans for coming, so it'll be a SmackDown who steal the show at the greatest SummerSlam of all time, and then there's a hype package playing for all the matches at SummerSlam.
This was really fun.
Oh, this was awesome. This was such a brilliant video package. I think they could do this stuff nowadays, because at the end of the day, especially on Raw, there's 3 hours worth of content to fill. And most of the time it seems like they don't actually have enough to fill those 3 hours. So why not just spend like 2-3 minutes just playing this really awesome, well put together video package, highlighting all the matches for the next show coming up?
I thought it was fun. I don't know who the narrator was, but she gave off a really cool vibe. You run down this card, and this card is legendary. And
Well, we might as well
that. Go ahead.
might as well run it down now then. So this is the matches that we're going to be looking forward to. If you have the Darkcast here on our Patreon, so the Smark Out Moment Patreon, $10 or more. If you signed up to that level, then you'll be hearing our review of SummerSlam 2002. Obviously, any amount is appreciated, but definitely at that level, you will be hearing this coming into your feed. I believe it would be the 25th of August.
Yeah.
So Tuesday, 25th of August. So that'll be when it hits your feeds there. But run down this stacked out card. So these are the matches that we've got to look forward to. Triple H versus Shawn Michaels in an unsanctioned street fight.
One of the greatest matches of all time.
Ric Flair versus Chris Jericho.
Pretty good. I mean, say that name now and it's blown away.
The Un-Americans, Christian and Lance Storm versus Booker T and Goldust for the World Tag Team Championship.
A match that we're going to see a lot more of, I think.
Kurt Angle versus Rey Mysterio.
Best opening match.
The Undertaker versus Test.
One and done for poor Test.
Lucky us. Edge versus Eddie Guerrero.
One of the best SmackDown rivalries of this era.
Chris Benoit versus Rob Van Dam for the Intercontinental Championship.
I remember liking this match. I'm curious to see if it holds up.
The Rock versus Brock Lesnar for the Undisputed Championship.
The peak of Brock Lesnar and the official end, as Callum alluded to earlier, of The Rock's full-time wrestling career and his workhorse world tour here.
I kind of see the full-time end of his career. It's either 2001 because then he starts like bouncing around to Hollywood quite often, or it's Backlash 2003. Because it's either because at that point you know that he's just done, he's out, and he's only back for like one match a year at most. But whichever way you want to look at it, it is the final time that he'll hold the championship for a very, very long time.
Yeah, and it's such a damn shame. Rock could have been a lot more. It's amazing to see how revered he is, and he only wrestled for like maybe 5-6 years full time.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's amazing. He had an amazing career.
So we have the main event. So we'll talk about The Rock a little bit more and sing his praise a little bit more because it's The Rock and Edge versus Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero. Lesnar and Heyman are watching from a TV in the back.
We get that Attitude Era start, man.
Yeah.
Where why would anybody do this? But the babyface Edge charges the ring and just starts the match without The Rock.
Yeah, and The Rock sprints down as well just to get involved in the action. And then we just have this great tag team match between four guys that are just great.
Yeah, I mean,
not really I would say it really.
I don't know if we've done Superstar Scores Rock, but his work in the ring is just rapidly increasing in my eyes because he was so good for this whole run.
So Eddie sneaks in to taunt The Rock. This makes the ref prevent The Rock getting in, so Eddie and Benoit can gang up on Edge for the heat. Edge is isolated for a very long time until he counters a brainbuster and collides with Eddie, makes a fiery hot tag to The Rock, who soon applies the sharpshooter to Chris Benoit. So Rock applying his own sharpshooter to Chris Benoit, who becomes pretty famous for using it in years going forward. He hits the spinebuster to Guerrero, hits a people's elbow. Benoit breaks up the pin, despite the fact that Eddie wasn't even the legal man anyway. But you can
nobody's paying attention to the rules.
And then there's a second heat segment on The Rock instead. So they're going to make another hot tag to Edge. So Edge does, again, another good fiery hot tag. Eddie dodges a spear, but Edge puts on the brakes before he hits the corner, allowing him to follow up with an execution. I think Benoit breaks the pin on that one. There's a rock bottoms Benoit, spear to Eddie Guerrero, and the babyfaces win.
Yeah, I think it was interesting that they allowed Edge to beat Eddie. They let the Intercontinental Champion remain unpinned. And again, fantastic match. One of my favorite transitions into a rock bottom ever, where, there was an Irish whip. I think Benoit tried to counter it and Rock just hit him with the rock bottom instead. Just phenomenal work. But I just had a thought. Do you think The Rock felt obligated in some regard to work with Benoit and Guerrero specifically because they were supposed to have a program with Austin before Austin walked out.
I can't say for certain whether that'd be the case. I think maybe he just wanted to work, like you say, I've said in the past, like it's just a case of wanting to work with the best workers, the people that will give him the best matches before he heads out. And
I mean, and he did it because these matches were just great.
And at this point in time, if they know The Rock's going to be on his way out for whatever extended period of time they thought that he was going to be out, if you're going to make big stars on SmackDown, you might as well put them against him. And if they had big plans for Benoit and Guerrero, as they seem to have, then you would put him against The Rock. Why wouldn't you?
I agree.
So Brock Lesnar comes down to the ring. He stares down both Rock and Edge. Rock asks Edge to leave so they can go one-on-one. The crowd is just going crazy at this point. They're going to get to see a little preview. And then they start throwing punches. The Rock starts throwing punches. Lesnar hits a knee to the gut, shoulders in the corner to the injured ribs of The Rock. But Rock battles back, spit punches Lesnar right out of the ring. Lesnar always did this kind of spot at this point in time in his heel run, where someone would punch him and then he just charges and leaps over the top rope.
He did it on Monday when Shawn kicks him accidentally. He just does the whole I'm just gonna charge over the ropes. I think the last time he would ever do that, well, before McIntyre, was when he jumped over the ropes on John Cena because he's Brock Lesnar and he can do whatever he wants. So, he is so underrated.
Oh, he's so great at this point in time, and The Rock obviously gets the advantage going into it. Heyman prevents Lesnar from diving back in to go after The Rock, so they've given us a little sneak preview. They haven't given us much, but they've given us enough to kind of whet our appetite and think, okay, this match is going to be off the chain. And even though you can talk about the quality of the match and whether it did or did not live up to expectations, at the very least, it made Lesnar, and that's kind of all it needed to do.
Yeah, and one more thing, the eyes on these two men.
Oh yeah, there was so
Lesnar's still doing the kind of Psycho Sid, but he's like got his eyes bulging out. Rock's got his eyes bulging out. Like these were just intense stare downs, and I think the stare down era was kind of an attitude thing, and you don't see it much anymore. But man, I miss it.
Yeah, there is just a heap of electricity between these two guys, and yeah, it's gonna lead to a very explosive match at SummerSlam. So overall, the show itself, what do you think?
Phenomenal episode of SmackDown. If the go home shows were like that today, I'd be so much more hyped going into the pay-per-views.
See, I actually, on initial viewing, I didn't think it was as good as the previous week, just because I think the in-ring action wasn't quite up to what we had last week, but that's because I'm an in-ring guy. But a lot of there was a great storytelling throughout this entire thing. There's stuff that's been built for long term, like say what you will about it, but the Devon and Batista stuff, the Matt Hardy story that's going on right now. But they're also building up to the big matches on SummerSlam with that main event, the Rey Mysterio and Kurt Angle thing that's going on. So yeah, this was a very good go home show.
And a lot of these matches were built with very limited time. You know, like Angle and Mysterio didn't have a long build. So when you hear, oh, well, you got 2 weeks to build your show, you can do it properly. And I think this show and this SummerSlam is one of those things that's going to show that you can build a very hot card very quickly.
So that's it for this edition. Only chance needs to preview a little bit of what we can expect next week. So next week is the follow-up from SummerSlam. So I'm not going to spoil any of the results that happen just because I want people to listen to the Patreon. To be fair, if you haven't seen SummerSlam 2002, watch it now. Just watch it because you won't regret it anyway. That's just a little spoiler for it, but we will be breaking it down in complete detail on the Patreon. But we have essentially a contenders gauntlet to determine who will be the next challenger for the WWE Championship. So there's plenty of names involved in this one, including the special new acquisition of SmackDown from the Raw roster, who will be competing in the main event. But you'll have to wait until next episode to find out who that is.
And I do believe this is the last SmackDown where it's referred to as the Undisputed Championship, right?
Like, yes, because there will be
it's WWE.
There will be talks about that as well, and what the situation with the WWE Championship is as well. So lots of stuff to talk about. But that's pretty much the end of this edition. The only thing to do is just hand out a few plugs before we move on. So I've already plugged Patreon, but as I mentioned before, any amount that you can give, just goes a long way into helping us out. So $1, $10, $50 for the Pick Your Poison tier. Anything is great. And if you want to help us in other ways monetarily, but want to get something more tangible in return straight away, then head up the Redbubble and TeePublic shops for a bit of merchandise, a shirt, a mask, a shower curtain, anything and everything you want to have plastered with some sort of corny joke that Tony or myself or Rob has made over the years. You can just have it on. You have it and wear it. Wear it with pride.
Yeah, wear that mask. Wear it with pride. Listen, anything just goes a long way into helping us, continue to provide great content for you. And I think Tony has said it a lot on this channel. If everybody who subscribed to the YouTube just donated $1, you could get so much more content from us. But every little amount counts. Like Callum said, there's the Darkcast tier, there's the Pick Your Poison tier. So if you want us to go back and review all of Raw from 2002, you can do that when you pick your poison. And just thank you for the support.
Absolutely. Check out Smark Out Moment's website for all the great articles we've got going out on the weekly, and just any sporadic ones we have coming up as well. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, all the other great social media links. Join the Megamaniacs for more discourse with like-minded wrestling fans on our Facebook group. Fanboys Anonymous, Tony's geek culture website, the blue brand of our little circle of things here. Just if you want to see more stuff on geek culture, you want to help him out on the Fanboys Patreon or buy some Fanboys merchandise, you can do all that there. You can follow me on Twitter.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Because you can follow me on Twitter at Weekmaster14, and now pass it over to Rob.
Yeah, and we do hope that this hits your ears bright and early in the morning, and we hope you stick around for the NXT TakeOver review later tonight and the SummerSlam review coming tomorrow. God knows it won't be as good as 2002, but that's okay. We're going to have fun. And for me, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DeFelice. Check out WrestleZone. Check out Fightful for everything pay-per-view related. And yeah, we'll just see you next time.
Yep, we will see you next time, guys. So hope you join us next Saturday. And if you are tuning into the Patreon, I hope you enjoy that one as well. But for now, this has been another Smark Out moment, and we are being counted out.